The darkness beyond your headlights isn't empty, it's hunting. Tonight we're diving into the twisted reality of America's highways, where ordinary trips become journeys straight into hell. These aren't just stories. They're survival testimonies from those who barely escaped with their lives. What you're about to hear has been verified through police reports, witness statements, and federal investigations. The names have been changed, but every terrifying detail, that's exactly as it happened after tonight. You'll never view that lonely stretch of highway the same way again. The Desert Stalker Jackson, 22, thought a cross-country RV trip with college friends Princeton and Camden would be the perfect pre-career adventure. Their 30-foot Winnebago sailed perfectly through Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Tennessee, everything according to plan. That confidence shattered when Princeton suggested a scenic detour through New Mexico's remote desert territory. The guidebook promised untouched Southwest beauty, perfect for adventurous travelers seeking the real America. The moment they crossed into New Mexico, civilization vanished. Red rock formations stretched endlessly. No gas stations, rest stops, or signs of life for over 100 miles. Just a two-lane highway cutting through absolute nothingness. 20 miles outside Shiprock, they found an abandoned rest area. Concrete tables, fire pits, decrepit facilities. Perfect for camping, surrounded by massive red formations creating a natural amphitheater. That first night, sitting around their campfire under brilliant desert stars, Jackson saw movement in his peripheral vision. When he turned to look directly, nothing. Just empty desert and ancient stone. By 11 p.m., exhausted, they retreated to bed. That's when the scratching started. Soft at first, fingernails on wood, coming from directly above Jackson's head. The sound moved deliberately, starting at one end of the RV and slowly traveling toward the other, as if something was walking across the roof. But they were miles from any trees. The scratching was too purposeful for wind, too organized for debris. Morning inspection revealed nothing. No scratches, debris, or animal tracks. The second night brought aggressive scratching that sounded like claws digging into fiberglass. All three friends lay awake listening to whatever stalked above them. Morning revealed disturbing footprints in the sand, almost human in shape but much larger, with claw marks extending from each toe. The prints formed a complete circle around their RV. Something had stalked them while they slept. As they packed frantically, Princeton discovered crude symbols written in mud on their back bumper, symbols that definitely hadn't been there the previous evening. The third night, everything went wrong. After driving 300 miles seeking escape, they stopped at what appeared to be a legitimate campground, but the scratching started earlier, accompanied by voices, muffled sounds mimicking their own conversations from that day. But the words were twisted, unnatural. Princeton grabbed his flashlight and stepped outside to investigate. For a moment, silence. Then he started screaming. Through their windows, they watched him sprint back, his light beam swinging wildly. Behind him, something pursued him in impossible leaping bounds that defied gravity. It looked human from a distance, but up close its limbs were too long, joints bent wrong, face a horrifying mixture of human and animal. The voices weren't random. They were exact recordings of their conversations, played back by something that had been listening, learning, preparing. The attacks became violent. Whatever was outside clawed walls, pounded the roof, tested every entry point. It grabbed their electrical cable and rocked the entire RV. When Camden tried starting the engine, nothing happened. Critical components had been removed. They were stranded with something inhuman systematically attacking their shelter. Just before dawn, everything stopped. A highway patrol officer found them hours later. When they described their experience to the mechanic, his face went pale. He said what they'd encountered was something local native tribes had warned about for centuries. They were lucky to survive. Somewhere in that vast wilderness, something inhuman still hunts travelers who venture too far from civilization. Jackson will never forget the sound of their own voices being played back by something that shouldn't exist. The truck stop predator Sam, 43, had driven long-haul trucks for over 20 years when September 2018 nearly ended his career and life. At the Desert Wind Travel Plaza outside Amarillo, he noticed a blue sedan parked oddly at the truck parking edge. Inside the restaurant, fellow driver Bill mentioned seeing the same blue sedan at several truck stops over 3 days, always positioned to watch truckers. That night at 3 a.m., Sam was awakened by someone trying his door handle. Through his sleeper cab curtains, he saw figures testing doors and examining his trailer. When he reached for his phone to call 911, he had no signal. Someone was jamming communications. After they left, Sam found a small magnetic GPS tracker stuck to his trailer's underside. The investigation revealed a sophisticated criminal network using truck stops as hunting grounds, tracking drivers to isolated robbery locations. They'd operated for over 2 years, responsible for 15 hijackings and 3 murders. Thanks to Sam's vigilance, 7 criminals were arrested. The leader received life without parole. The rest area rescue 17-year-old Breland was the skeptical teenager who thought her parents were overprotective. During summer 2021, her family stopped at a rest area along Interstate 25 in New Mexico. While her family used restrooms, Breland noticed 3 men near a white panel van acting nervously. When a college-aged woman walked toward the restroom, one man started following her. When the woman emerged, all 3 men moved toward her from different directions, coordinated predators. One grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the van, while others blocked her escape. Breland realized she was witnessing an abduction in progress. She ran to her family, screaming someone was being kidnapped. Her father immediately ran toward the men while shouting for others to call 911. The criminals pushed the woman into their van and sped away, but not before her father got a partial license plate. Within minutes, FBI agents swarmed the area. They'd been tracking a human trafficking ring operating along major southwest highways, using rest areas as hunting grounds for young women traveling alone. The sophisticated operation had scouts at travel locations identifying vulnerable victims. The FBI estimated this ring had abducted at least 25 women over 2 years. Most were never seen again. A massive search operation tracked the criminals to Arizona, where they rescued the young woman alive but severely traumatized. 3 men were arrested, leading to 14 more arrests, dismantling the entire organization. All received life sentences. The rescued woman was a graduate student driving from California to Texas who'd stopped for a routine bathroom break and nearly vanished into sexual slavery. The Phantom Hitchhiker KZ, 26, was driving solo through Nevada in October 2021, seeking therapeutic solitude after a difficult divorce. During a violent thunderstorm, she saw a figure standing roadside, a man in hiking clothes completely soaked, frantically waving, despite warnings about picking up strangers. The storm was so severe that leaving someone stranded could be lethal. David seemed genuinely grateful, explaining his car had broken down 5 miles back. He was a photographer documenting abandoned desert buildings. Everything seemed legitimate, polite, well-spoken, showing professional photos, but gradually disturbing details emerged. David never blinked. His eyes remained fixed, unnatural. In her rearview mirror, she could see her own reflection clearly, but David cast no reflection. The passenger seat appeared empty. Despite walking in a cold rainstorm for over an hour, David showed no signs of being out of breath or cold. She couldn't hear him breathing at all. Then David started talking about her, describing details about her divorce, intimate information she'd never mentioned. Worse, he began repeating internal conversations she'd been having with herself, private thoughts no one else could know. When she asked how he could know these things, David smiled for the first time. It wasn't human. His mouth stretched too wide, revealing too many sharp teeth. His eyes, once brown, were now completely black. David began speaking in her own voice, perfectly mimicking her accent while describing how he'd been watching her for weeks, learning everything, preparing to take her place and live her life. When she tried pulling over, David grabbed her wrist with impossibly strong, ice-cold fingers. As they approached town lights, Kesey made a desperate decision. She swerved toward a concrete barrier at 50 mph. The impact cracked her ribs and deployed airbags. When she regained consciousness, David was gone. His backpack contained only rocks and dead vegetation. Police found an abandoned vehicle where David claimed his car broke down. It had been sitting there over 3 years. The investigating officer said she wasn't the first to report similar encounters on that highway stretch. Somewhere in the Nevada desert, something inhuman still waits for the next lonely traveler to show it kindness. The Kidnapping Trap brothers, Jason and Jake, were driving from Cleveland to California in March 2019. both starting dream tech jobs in San Jose. At a rest area outside Grand Junction, Colorado, a friendly local named Mike approached offering travel advice. Mike seemed genuinely helpful, asking about their jobs and move plans. But looking back, Jason realized Mike was gathering information about their situation. After lunch, they noticed Mike talking to two other men near a pickup truck. When they tried to leave, the three men approached with weapons, demanding their moving truck and forcing them into the pickup at knife point. They were taken to an abandoned farm, a base of operations with tools, rope, duct tape, and personal items from other victims. These weren't first-time criminals but experienced predators who'd probably killed before. The men discussed holding them for ransom versus eliminating them entirely. The casual way they discussed murder was more terrifying than any movie. While their captors argued, Jake worked on loosening his ropes. When the criminals left to discuss plans privately, he freed himself and Jason. They escaped through a hidden back door, hiking through woods until reaching a road where a passing motorist called 911. Police tracked their moving truck's GPS to the farm, arresting all three criminals planning their next move. Mike and associates were wanted for multiple kidnappings and robberies across several states. They'd operated for over 2 years, targeting travelers with valuable belongings. During trial, prosecutors revealed they'd planned to kill the brothers that same evening. They'd murdered at least 3 other victims in similar circumstances. Mike received life without parole while accomplices got 25-40 years. The brothers' escape probably saved not only their lives, but future victims who would have been targeted if the predators remained free. The Highway Stalker Jakai, 29, worked as a traveling nurse, constantly driving between hospitals across 3 states. In spring 2022, she first noticed a silver Chevrolet Malibu during a Chicago to Indianapolis drive. It maintained the same distance behind her for hours. When she tested by taking an unplanned rest stop exit, the Malibu followed. The driver remained in his vehicle, watching the building entrance while she was inside. Over weeks, the same Malibu appeared during multiple trips, becoming increasingly aggressive. Instead of maintaining distance, he'd tailgate for miles, flash headlights, honk, make gestures in her rearview mirror. During a St. Louis to Milwaukee trip, the driver tried forcing her to pull over, speeding alongside her car and gesturing for her to roll down windows or exit the highway. When she refused, he'd repeat the process. The stalking extended beyond highways. She found the Malibu parked at her hotel, positioned to observe her room. That night, she found a disturbing note on her car containing personal information he shouldn't have known. Work schedules, recent assignments, even family member details. The writer claimed they were meant to be together and threatened consequences if she continued ignoring his highway communications. FBI investigation identified him as Robert, a 47-year-old truck driver who'd been stalking her for 8 months, since her very first traveling nurse assignment. He'd used his highway knowledge to track her movements and plan surveillance. Investigators found evidence of at least 3 previous victims over 5 years. One had been forced to relocate after he broke into her apartment. Robert was arrested carrying rope, duct tape, and items suggesting kidnapping plans. His journals contained detailed plans for forcing her off the road and holding her prisoner at a prepared location. He received 15 years federal prison. The FBI agent said his arrest prevented what would almost certainly have been violent crime. His journals showed clear escalation patterns that typically end in physical violence. The Time Loop Prison Inn. December 2023. Jackson was driving Cleveland to Chicago for a crucial job interview. 4 hours in, tired and eating coffee, he stopped at Sunset Ridge Travel Plaza. After getting coffee, he checked his phone. 6:47 p.m. Perfect timing to reach Chicago by 8 mo. But when he tried leaving, the exit ramp curved back to the rest area, bringing him to the exact same parking space. His phone still showed 6:47 p.m. Everything appeared exactly as before. Same people, same vehicles, same conversations. He was trapped in a time loop, endlessly repeating the same few minutes. Every escape attempt led back to the same parking space at 6:47 p.m. Testing his theory, Jackson approached a family he'd seen during all visits. The father gave the exact same response word for word, with identical inflection and gestures. Exploring more thoroughly, Jackson noticed travelers wearing clothing from different eras. 1980s business suits, 1960s dresses, 1950s family attire. Vehicles were vintage models in perfect condition despite their age. A museum display revealed the rest area was built on the site of a tragic 1987 bus accident. A Greyhound carrying 37 passengers crashed during a thunderstorm, killing everyone. The people Jackson had been seeing matched descriptions of crash victims, trapped in eternal loops, forever preparing to continue journeys that would never be completed. Understanding he'd become caught in the same supernatural trap, Jackson realized these souls were stuck because they died suddenly without completing travels or saying goodbye. He began talking to different travelers, learning their stories. A businessman heading to his daughter's wedding, a woman visiting her sick mother, a family moving to a new city. One by one, Jackson helped lost souls acknowledge they had died and their earthly journeys were over. As each found peace and departed, the rest area became less crowded, and the time loop weakened. When the last bus crash victim accepted their fate, the time loop collapsed. Jackson found himself at 8:23 p.m., nearly 2 hours after first stopping. The place looked normal, with contemporary travelers and no trace of vintage cars. The 1987 bus crash victims were finally at peace, and Jackson had helped them find their way home. These highways we travel daily are more than transportation corridors. They're places where human dramas unfold, where tragedies echo through time, and where the boundaries between worlds grow thin. The road ahead isn't just a path to your destination. Sometimes it's a bridge between the living and dead, where a wrong turn can trap you in nightmares you'll never forget. Stay alert, trust your instincts, and remember, on America's highways you're never truly alone.